Actor James Caan passed away today. The stereotypical tough guy with a heart from Hollywood. James Caan's estate was only worth $35,000 when he passed away in July 2022. Everyone was taken aback. Where were the Godfather and Elf's millions? Scott, his son, took over as executive right away, but his 4 other kids weren't having it. They thought Scott was attempting to steal the millions their father had hidden. Family sessions that were held in secret grew heated. An angry sibling barged out. Then a huge tax bill arrived from the IRS. The argument became so intense that solicitors spent $500,000. In reality, what was James Caan hoping to leave behind? James Caan was born in the Bronx, New York, on March 26, 1940. In order to avoid the atrocities of the Nazis, his parents had left Germany. During the last years of the Great Depression, these Jewish immigrants made their home in a difficult area of the city, selling kosher meat in a little corner store that barely survived. His father was a butcher. James, who was then known as Jimmy, grew up in a crowded, uncomfortably crowded neighborhood. The 1940s Bronx was a noisy, stressful, and frequently brutal place to live. Due to the frequent street fights, young males quickly learned how to defend themselves. Jimmy was no different. By the age of 10, he was already participating in rodeos and boxing, taking falls that resulted in actual injuries, and his eyes were full of fear. Despite not being the biggest kid on the block, he had a crazy energy that attracted attention. Among his 2 siblings was a sister named Barbara, who passed away at the age of 38 from leukemia in 1981. Things didn't get much easier once the family relocated to Sunnyside, Queens. It was a different hole, but it was the same working-class life. The expenditures were barely covered by his father's butcher shop. That poverty affected Jimmy. It stoked his appetite for more than street corners and meat shops. He was around 5 in Sunnyside, which was not tall enough to stay out of trouble in those days. After being repeatedly beaten and harassed, he decided he could no longer put up with it at the age of 12 in 1952. He began learning karate and continued until he was 16 years old in 1956, earning a black belt, a feat that was uncommon and required more than 1,000 hours of intense training, while continuing to attend school and avoid fights. The black belt changed his life. By the time he was 15, he had already broken his ribs twice in rodeo competitions, and his moves became so sharp that later on during the filming of The Godfather, he used that training to create those wild, believable fight scenes that made people sit up in their seats. The bullies stopped, and even gang kids started backing off. There were more than 200 youth gangs in Queens in the 1950s, and James didn't want to join any of them. But he had to learn how to survive in their presence. That black belt gave him more than just skill, it gave him respect. He continued to train, and in 1983 he became a 6th-degree black belt, and he even trained police units all over the world. However, those formative years were dangerous. In 1955, a child pulled a knife during a fight, but James managed to escape unscathed. In 1956, when he turned 16, he received a football scholarship to Michigan State University, which was significant for a Bronx kid because MSU was renowned for its dominant football team under Coach Duffy Daugherty. James wasn't built for it. He was thrown around like a rag doll at 165 pounds, and he dislocated his shoulder twice in a single month. The coach even joked that Jimmy might be better off acting than playing football. The school had 42,000 students, and the team went 9 that season. Academically, things weren't going well either. After just 16 weeks, he dropped out in December 1956, losing the more than $200 scholarship, and returning to New York without a plan or money after failing 3 classes in his first semester, due to homesickness and freezing temperatures as low as -10. When he returned to Michigan State as the homecoming Grand Marshal in 1997, he joked that the only thing warm about the experience was the memory. In 1957, at the age of 17, he transferred to Hofstra University on Long Island, where he met Francis Ford Coppola, who would change his life. Both of them were Queens kids, wild, and full of ideas. Before all of that, James was grinding. They clicked right away, and their friendship led to outrageous antics, like the time James made Coppola cry and yell while filming in 1969 by tricking him into eating into a jalapeno sandwich. After working 12-hour shifts as a lifeguard at Jones Beach, saving 3 people from drowning in 1958, and waiting tables for a pittance of $125 per hour, he never graduated from Hofstra, and spent 5 years studying under Sanford Meisner. At night, he bounced at rough bars and was threatened with a knife. The first big step into acting came in 1960, when he was just 20, and landed a role in an off-Broadway play called Lond. It wasn't glamorous. He once got into a street fight so bad that it broke his nose in 1959, but he persevered. That same Coppola who once cried over a sandwich would later cast him in a film that changed everything. He brought wild energy to the role, but he almost lost his job twice backstage after arguing with the director. He made $50 a week and had to wait tables at night to make ends meet. He had already been turned down for 50 roles before that, but he stuck with it. The play was controversial for its time, full of messy emotions and sensuality. In 1961, he had his first Broadway appearance in Blood, Sweat, and Stanley Pool. By 1962, he was filming his first film role. In 1963, he made a brief appearance in Billy Wilder's comedy Irma Luce, playing a soldier who was more interested in baseball than the plot. Being on that set, however, changed him. He saw how much precision acting could require after watching Wilder demand 45 takes of a single scene. He received $100 and almost lost his job for improvising his lines. But he recalled every moment. He was not invited to the premiere and had to use his own watch as collateral to purchase food. However, that brief appearance opened doors, and in 1964 everything changed. He played a violent thug and lady in a cage, and his portrayal was unavoidable. He was ruthless, terrifying, and unforgettable. And some theaters cut out scenes because they were so intense. To get ready, he reconnected with real gang members and watched a man get beaten on the street. In 1965, he landed another big role in Redline, 7000, and after earning $5,000 in, leaving with a scarred hand and a sprained ankle, something inside him clicked, and he realized he could use all the pain, the anger, and the childhood memories to make characters come to life. He trained with actual rodeo riders in Texas, competing in events and getting thrown around like a rag doll, in order to get ready. On July 15, 1964, he broke 3 ribs and dislocated a shoulder during a bull stunt, but he continued filming covertly because he didn't want the producers to replace him. By the time The Rain People came out in 1969, everything had changed. He was 29 years old, and his performance as a brain-damaged former football player touched people in ways few expected. He even won $200 in one event, but ended up in the hospital after suffering a concussion. His toughness earned him the nickname the Jewish Cowboy, and it stuck with him for years. The film wasn't ostentatious. James Caan did something absolutely crazy when he walked into his audition for The Godfather in 1971. The picture was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, the same guy from Hofra, and it brought Caan the respect he had worked for all those years. It was somber and melancholy, and his performance felt brutally true. Despite studio pressure, he chose Caan to play Sunani Corleo, the irate, fiery son in a violent crime family. And instead of reading lines like everyone else, he began mumbling nonsense like Marlon Brando, calling himself a bum, and talking to someone named Charlie who wasn't even there. He later claimed that the audition was the worst of his life, but Francis Ford Coppola loved it. When the movie came out on March 24, 1972, it didn't just make money. It made between $250 and $291 million at the box office. On set, Caan became Brando's personal clown, making him laugh all day long and cracking jokes. The crew was shocked by this unexpected friendship, which demonstrated that Caan had genuine charm behind his tough guy persona. In the scene where Sonny beats up his brother-in-law, Carlo, Caan wasn't just acting when he became violent. He was a 6th-degree black belt in Gasoku Ryu Karate, which he had trained in for more than 40 years under Takayuki Kubota. In addition to the punch that didn't make it on camera, he actually chipped Russo's elbow and broke 2 of his ribs off camera. This wasn't the last time Caan used martial arts on screen. In 1975, he demonstrated actual strikes and takedowns in The Killer Elite, and by 1991, he was even featured on the cover of Black Belt magazine. Caan couldn't stand him in real life, and the scene became one of the top 10 Sonny moments ever. It felt real because it was. Caan was nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the 45th Academy Awards on March 27, 1973, when The Godfather swept into the race. He faced off against his own co-stars, Robert Duvall and Al Pacino, but all 3 lost to Joel Grey from Cabaret. Caan later claimed that the defeat pushed him into cocaine use, and by the time he was filming The Gambler in 1974, he was already heavily addicted to the drug, although he continued to receive nominations for Golden Globes in 1974 and 1975. as well as an Emmy for Brian's song. In 1971, his success was insufficient to conceal his struggles, and he stopped acting completely between 1982 and 1987 as a result of his addiction, grief, and burnout. Even though Caan had been awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, in 1978 it took him reaching the lowest point in his career before he began to rise again. In 1990, however, he returned with more suffering than ever before, and, aside from one flashback scene, Caan refused to return for The Godfather Part 2. Pacino, by contrast, had only received $35,000 for his lead role in Part 1. Caan's decision was audacious. He wanted to break free from being typecast and pursue new roles. He demanded the full $100,000 salary he received from the first film, even though it was only for a brief birthday moment. That would be roughly $600,000 today. The demand caused tension with Coppola, but Caan didn't back down. Axel Freire, a professor who gambled away $44,000 in one night, was played by Caan in The Gambler, also released in 1974. The sequel, which was released on December 20, 1974, went on to win 6 Oscars, without Caan in most of it, though he later stated he didn't regret it. It gave him the opportunity to star in Rollerball in 1975, where he took yet another risk that nearly cost him his health. Written by former gambling addict James Toback, the story followed Axel as he lied, manipulated, and sabotaged himself at every turn, even fixing a college basketball game. Caan continued to use drugs during filming, and although he was unraveling, the performance was powerful. The average gambler's debt at the time was about $45,000, which is nearly exactly what Axel owed. Critics noted how raw and distant he appeared. They reproduced it in 2014 with Mark Wahlberg, but it never carried the same weight. Caan's version had sorrow behind every line. Funny Lady in 1975 showed his lighter side, but The Gambler was the one that everybody remembered. He wasn't just playing an addict, he was one. Director Norman Jeeson claimed that promoters even attempted to turn the fictional sport into a real league, which missed the entire point of the film. Rollerball was released in 1975, and it was a chaotic film. Caan wanted the violence to feel real, so he did all of the stunts himself, which came at a great cost. He injured his shoulder and ribs. One stuntman ended up in the hospital, and another was out for 6 months. Despite all the injuries, Caan's obsession with realism gave the film its bite, but he paid for it physically. Nevertheless, the film made over $30 million and became a cult classic, even though it left Caan battered and bruised. In 1980, he tried something different. Off-camera, the cast began playing the brutal game for fun. Based on a true story, he directed Hide in Plain Sight, a slow, emotional film about a father searching for his children who have been hidden by the government. The film was released on March 21, 1980, and MGM didn't even bother to properly promote it. It made less than $3 million at the box office, and while critics praised the concept, they criticized the direction, which crushed Caan. Between 1982 and 1987, he stopped performing. His drug use worsened. His marriage failed. He even declined Blade Donor. He remained at home, immersed in his addiction, missing role after role. He later referred to this period as one of the saddest periods of his life. Thief, which was released on March 27, 1981, followed. Director Michael managed to capture something raw, but Caan's character Frank was a safecracker with nothing to lose, and the chaos on set actually improved the performance. But Caan acknowledged that it nearly killed his career. It was supposed to be his comeback, but his drug problems reached a peak, causing him to destroy props, cause delays, and arrive on set so hungover that scenes had to be reshot. Despite the studio's reluctance to collaborate with someone so unstable, Thief managed to earn over $11 million in a budget of $5.5 million and gradually became a cult favorite. Francis Ford Coppola called him back in 1987 for Gardens of Stone, and Caan took the role seriously, dropping 30 pounds and going from 180 to 150 to portray a battered soldier. However, Caan looked completely different. His co-stars, including Angelica Houston, were shocked by how gaunt and intense he appeared. It wasn't just acting. He had recently gotten clean and had been coaching Little League Baseball to stay grounded. The movie came out on May 8 and failed again, earning only $5.3 million. James Caan had once vanished from the public eye, struggling with cocaine addiction, depression, and pain that went deeper than Hollywood could see. In the 1980s, he was coaching Little League instead of acting, and by the time of his death in 2022, his estate had been reduced to just $35,000. Years of addiction, divorces, lawsuits, and poor management had drained everything. Things changed in 1992, though, when he returned in Honeymoon in Vegas, a comedy in which he played Sonny Corleone and was now 52 years old, chasing Sarah Jessica Parker and threatening Nicolas Cage with skydiving goons, while playing a crazy, Elvis-obsessed gambler wearing a shiny jumpsuit and a pompadour. Caan lost over $1 million at casinos in the 1980s, so he put his real-life gambling misery into that role, which wasn't just acting, it was genuine. The $35 million movie gave Caan his spark again, and it opened the floodgates. In the following years, he starred in over 20 films. In 2003, James Caan did something that no one had anticipated. He starred in the Christmas comedy Elf as Will Ferrell's grumpy father. Everyone assumed it would be a joke, but his line, "You sit on a throne of lies," became a meme that had been shared over 10 million times by 2025. The film made $220 million, but what people didn't realize was that Caan based his character's coldness on his own resentment. After 4 failed marriages, Caan was 63, and once again, he shocked everyone. Behind the scenes, things weren't so happy, as he argued with the director and wanted to quit, but Will Ferrell persuaded him to stay. Behind all the holiday cheer, there were rumors that Caan had a $20 million fortune, but that most of it had been quietly left to just one son after his death. From 2003 to 2007, James Caan shocked his fans once more by entering the television industry. That resentment made the performance genuine. He even received a nomination for a Saturn Award. In the NBC series Las Vegas, which drew 12 million viewers per episode, Caan played Ed DeLean, a casino boss with a history in the CIA. His scenes felt authentic because they were based on real life. In 1994, he had been threatened by mobsters over unpaid bets and had racked up over $250 in gambling debt. People didn't just see an actor. They saw a man who had lived the part, working 14-hour days despite being 67 years old. The grind eventually got to him, and he left TV in 2007, vowing never to do it again. But that show helped him recover financially, earning $100,000 per episode, which he used to rebuild from the 1980s low points. He played the President of the United States in the 2008 film Get Smart, a brief scene that conveyed something. He was 68 years old at the time and full of mischief, making jokes that weren't even in the script, some of which were so outrageous that they had to be removed from the theatrical version and added later in the DVD extras. The audience gave him 85% approval. He made people laugh again. And in 2014, James Caan took on what would be one of his final major roles. Despite all the heart problems that would send him to the hospital in 2009, he had not lost his spark. He had smoked 2 packs a day for decades, and his body was beginning to give in. Nevertheless, he stated in a 2016 interview that he took the role just for fun, even though he once claimed that he was done with acting, and that's why it worked. He played a crime leader in the film, The Outsider, at the age of 74. He was icy and menacing, exactly like in his previous roles from the 1970s. But this time it wasn't just acting. Caan had been jailed in 1994 for a scuffle, and he was carrying a gun. Caan wasn't just acting tough, he had experienced it. The film received an 82% rating on IMDb, and despite being a small independent production, it attracted over 1 million viewers in a single month. Critics were astonished, saying he still had the fire, and he even acknowledged that a near-death infection in 2010 made him believe this might be his last chance. James Caan had left his mark, but this was one of the last times he would appear on screen. James Caan passed away at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center on July 6, 2022, at 9:02 p.m. from a heart attack, but his body had been battling coronary artery disease, COPD, and heart failure for years. He was buried at Eden Memorial Park, and as the tributes poured in, people remembered the fighter behind the screen. The tough guy from Thief and Misery had been quietly suffering, and no one had realized how bad it was. He had worked for 60 years, received 4 Golden Globe nominations, and received his Hollywood star in 1978. In one of his last interviews in 2021, he stated that he was still frustrated, and that he still wanted to do more. But that time had finally caught up with him. Behind the fame was a man who had been broken, repaired, and broken again. He had 5 children from 4 different women. Only a few months after his death, in March 2023, his son Scott Caan filed documents to become the sole executor of his estate. The total estate value was a startling $35,000, and everyone wondered where the remaining funds came from: The Godfather, Elf, Misery, and Las Vegas. But the paperwork was authentic. In 2023, the family feud erupted because Scott had the authority to sell, lease, or manage everything, including 2 small land properties worth $15,000 and $20,000. His 4 siblings, Tara, Alexander, James, and Jacob, were incensed, thinking there were hidden millions and that Scott was attempting to seize control and keep them out. Despite coming from 4 different mothers, the 4 siblings banded together to stop Scott, because they thought their father had left them more than just land and spare change. There were royalties from Elf and The Godfather, potentially worth millions of dollars, and there were rumors that family gatherings had become unpleasant. The drama wasn't just about money, it was about trust. James Caan's complicated personal life had devolved into a legacy war, with each child pulling in a different direction. Then came another blow when the IRS intervened in October 2023 with a nearly $1 million tax bill. At one point, Alexander reportedly stormed out in rage. It all started with a failed investment in 2015. Caan had invested in a hedge fund through UBS, but UBS paid him directly in 2014 after the fund failed to provide the required documentation. Merrill Lynch converted it into cash and rolled it over in 2017, but that action violated the IRS rule. The court decided against the estate in October 2023, and that error resulted in a huge penalty that cut away what little inheritance was left. The battles are still going on in 2025, and Scott is still in charge as executive. He wants to sell the Beverly Hills house and movie memorabilia because he thinks they could bring in $10 million. You can't switch asset types like that and still claim tax-free status. The family is still divided, and lawsuits are still pending in Los Angeles. But Alexander and others say that would destroy their father's legacy, and that James Caan wanted a foundation to protect his reputation, particularly his role in The Godfather. According to court documents, mediation in 2024 failed, and no one could agree. James Caan may have dreamed of oneness, but it has fallen apart into resentment, legal proceedings, and news stories.